Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are in Aberdeen, Washington at the corner of 2nd and Stanton, and we are about to be going to something that I think if you're a music lover you're going to enjoy. Today we're going to be visiting Kurt Cobain Park. Kurt Cobain was born in 1967. He went on to form one of the most interesting and unique sounds and changed the way that the world heard music. He graduated from Aberdeen High School, ended up marrying Courtney Love, and had one child, Frances Bean Cobain. He pioneered the sound of grunge with the band Nirvana and played the guitar while also singing vocals. He was a very interesting person and wanted to stay slightly away from the limelight. However, he was thrust into this after the popularity of Nirvana's first album. A reluctant superstar, Cobain struggled with heroin addiction and chronic health problems. He had depression. He also struggled with personal and professional fame as a whole. His tumultuous relationship with his wife and fellow musician Courtney Love only made this worse. In 1994, he overdosed. He ended up going to an intervention program, but later in 1994 was found dead in his home in Seattle at the age of just 27. Police concluded that he had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Despite his passing, his legacy went forward, and later he was inducted along with his bandmates into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rolling Stone has included Kurt Cobain in their list of 100 greatest songwriters of all time. He has been named to the 100 greatest guitarists and also the 100 greatest singers of all time. He was ranked 7th by MTV in the greatest voices in music. Now, if you are a person who has followed music, you've followed the various waves of different kinds of music that have been introduced throughout the years. Unique sounds are not something that happen all the time, but Kurt Cobain from Nirvana actually defined a generation. It's been said so many times by the grunge music that he created and produced, and the sound that is so iconic. Now, there were a lot of other people along the grunge movement that made a big, huge impact, some of which are still performing today. In fact, if you have the opportunity to go and pull up any of the 90s grunge bands, go do so. It's one of those things that it's really, really good, and at the same time, some of those people are still very active in today, like Pearl Jam, for example. But I enjoy coming out to places like this to see where some of those creative thoughts came from. Now, Kurt did not live on this property. He didn't live on one of these properties that's connected, so don't bother the neighbors if you come. But it's said that he actually came here for some of his inspiration and would walk along the waters and listen to the sounds and write some of his lyrics. And so coming to a place that was inspirational for one person who changed a generation, sign me up for that. Now, why does Kurt Cobain resonate with so many people? Well, a lot of the lyrics that he would put out had a lot of angst in them, a lot of disdain for what was going on around, and just the sheer guttural sounds of the music really resonated with an entire generation that felt underrepresented at that time. And so people like Kurt Cobain came onto the scene not ever wanting to be commercial, yet found themselves in large arenas filled with crowds because they were the voice of that generation. Now, that pressure became a lot for him, and if you watch any of the documentaries or interviews, you can see that that started to play its toll on him and ultimately led to what was considered to be the most controversial demise of an artist in a very long time. Now, there's a lot of people out there who have a lot of theories, but we're just going to go with what was reported. He committed suicide, and unfortunately he became a part of the 27 Club in doing so. And the 27 Club is a really tragic group of very talented people who met their demise way too early. But if you go into, again, all of the theories, there's a lot of them floating out there. So I'm sure that you, if you're a music lover, also have your own. But today we're here to celebrate the life and the legacy of Kurt Cobain in this small park in his hometown. Now, there's a few other places around town that you can visit that are listed on some of the Nirvana websites and things like that, and I encourage you guys to get out here and do that if you can. However, the city of Aberdeen doesn't have just some grand scale Kurt Cobain just sitting out there. You have to look for it a little bit. But I think that this park is a pretty good tribute to this man. Now, there are other tributes around the country that you can find to Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain as well. And they do have a very nice display in Seattle at the Pop Culture Museum. So I encourage you guys to go and check that out also. But for now, let's go and wander down this little path under the bridge, because this is considered to be the Under the Bridge Park after all. But before we do, it's Kurt's air guitar. Now, in interviews, it was said that Kurt used to come under the bridge and do some things that aren't necessarily the most encouraged things. But amidst that, he would also find his deepest of thoughts. And this is a really inspirational place. I will say it's very different. It's pretty secluded from the people around you. You do have the sound of the roadway overhead, so it's kind of fascinating. But at the same time, it's kind of removed, away, a quiet place. Now, obviously, people come down here pretty frequently, even still today. There's a lot of graffiti here now, and I can only imagine there probably was then as well. But something else that I found that wasn't necessarily a sign of life down here, but rather another memorial, was this. This memoriam from the muddy banks. These muddy banks right here below us. Now, again, people clearly have been up here, and I will never encourage you to leave things behind. In fact, I think you should leave no trace wherever you are, whether it's in a city or in the middle of nowhere. But I do understand also that a lot of people feel very connected to this artist because he represented their voices. And so a lot of people have left gifts, so to speak. Also, they have left words on some of the benches about how that he had impacted their lives. So it's a very fascinating place, and not also different from coming to see someone like Elvis's final resting place. He was the Elvis of an entire generation. And I know somebody's cringing at home for me saying that, but I remember Teen Spirit too, okay? Whenever it came out, everything suddenly shifted. It went from lots of hairspray to this otherworldly sound, and led to detuned guitars later on, closer to the 2000s. So I wanted to come here and pay tribute to one of the musicians that I found a lot of interest in the 90s that still dictates my music taste today. And everything we listen to. Believe it or not, one kind of music ties into the next kind of music, ties into the next kind of music, and you too probably have listened to something that has been in some way, shape, or form impacted by Kurt Cobain. Okay, so why this bridge and why this waterway? If there were so many places around Aberdeen that impacted Kurt Cobain in his earlier years, then why here? Well, in fact, you can kind of go through some of his different lyrics and find that many of them actually did pay reference to this bridge. And whenever he passed away, a portion of his ashes were actually sprinkled into this very water here as a final resting place, because this place meant so much to him. And so that's kind of a fascinating, interesting fact that you don't hear so often. but it kind of brings everything full circle and makes sense. His lyrics themselves, they moved people. Just like the water here moves, and it moved him. It's a fascinating thing, but there's one more thing I want to share with you guys before we hit the road for our next adventure. This stone right here has a few of his famous quotes, and some of them are pretty interesting. I'm just going to share a couple of them with you. My name is Kurt. I sing, I play the guitar, and I'm a walking, talking bacterial infection. Okay, a little bit wild, but right above that, holding my baby is the best drug in the world. This man went through a lot of struggles in his life, but ultimately, I would like to think that through those struggles, he triumphed in some ways. Now, I want to conclude this video by sharing 2 links with you. In the description box below, if you or someone you know is having an issue where you're suffering from some kind of drug-related issue, or you're having suicidal thoughts, both of these links will come to you and be helpful below. I wanted to share this because I think mental health is such a big deal, and even someone who has risen to such fame can suffer. So you and I are not above this. So I wanted to come here to pay honor to an icon of music, but also to share that message with you all. Now, this isn't my normal content that I share. I go to a lot of really cool places and I share some cool stuff, but at the same time, I want to raise awareness and use my platform for something positive. So again, if you do need these numbers, they are in the description of this video. Remember guys, we are not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time, and places like this pay tribute to music, which fuels so many of those amazing memories. Till next time guys, bye!